Photography is a lens to capture the world around us, and also it's kind of difficult, actually. Anyone can make a picture black and white and say it's deep, but framing, color correction, aperture, white balance, and all that other stuff is pretty hard. Umurangi Generation and its macro DLC are not hard, but it is a game about capturing the world and preserving it, the good and the bad. Something of a 3D iSpy book, Umurangi uses clues to guide you around its little world to find the smallest details, and draws your attention around its tiny little sandboxes. Umurangi Generation initially released for the PC in 2020, and a year later would reach the Switch, with gyro controls in handheld mode that are apparently very, very cool. Then hit the Xbox One in 2022, and the PlayStation 4 and 5 in 2024, with the addition of support for PSVR, which is interesting, I suppose. Umurangi was developed by a small team, Origame Digital, based out of Australia, and led by Naphtali Faulkner, a member of the Ngai to Rangi iwi of New Zealand. I tried my best. I don't know how close that actually is. Which influenced both the name, Umurangi meaning red sky, and various bits around the world, most notably towards the end. Although there's also a lot of elements of broader Australian culture and criticisms of its government, which also appear throughout. Although you don't necessarily need to know a lot about that kind of stuff to enjoy the game. Umurangi's iSpy elements are less the game and more so the guide rails. You do need to complete them to move on, at least the main ones, with a few extra objectives appearing in every level. Get a picture of all your friends, get enough money by taking good pictures, take the special postcard shot from a marked location, and do it all in 10 minutes, with the extra hoops giving you an additional upgrade. Some levels focus more on the finding stuff than others, but largely these are breadcrumbs pulling you to interesting places in the level. The real value of Umurangi is in the intrinsic value of taking cool looking pictures. Most of the upgrades you get make your pictures look nicer. Sliders and toggles to affect contrast, color, focus, flash, telescopic lenses that let you take pictures of distant objects, dirty lenses that add a bit of lens flare, an ultra wide lens that lets you take a picture of literally everything on the stage, fisheyes for some silly ones. The game does force you to use a variety of these lenses, certain objectives require them, just to minimize the power of taking photos of the whole map and winning instantly, but every stage has a few that still let you smash them with the ultra wide. Maybe that one should have been saved as a reward for the final mission or something. The only unlockable that doesn't fit the mold of being another cool thing to take cool pictures with is the final one, a third jump that also lets you hover in place, and even then, that's just a new angle to take cool pictures from. The game rewards you very little for being creative. Making cool shots might net you a few extra dollars here and there to nudge you to the requirement, but largely, I just found it fun. The world of Umurangi is interesting, vaguely cyberpunk, but only a little bit. Modern but grungy and falling apart as you go along. But even then, there's always people just living their lives and enjoying the world as it is, and your friends are always with you, for the good and the bad. It's easy to look and see the beauty in the world around you. Dim, moody lights, cigarettes, and graffiti. It's not hard to find something worth remembering and taking pictures of. Stages do occasionally mix it up. Some of them are much more focused on the treasure hunting element, but it's never to the detriment of the photography. It just forces you to examine the world that much deeper and see all the cool little things in it. The camera is easily the most in-depth and probably strongest in gaming. Pokemon Snap just lets you take pictures and zoom and is pretty utilitarian in being used for scoring. Dead Risings is equally light in features and pretty utilitarian in getting extra experience. There's a utilitarian aspect to it in Umurangi too. The camera is a path to progression, but it's equally a tool to make small pieces of art with. One oddity of the game is the movement. It definitely has some flavors of first-time development. Any sufficiently thin platform, especially the sloped ones, are very hard to walk on top of, as you just seem to slip off the sides for no apparent reason. Slopes in general seem to be a bit of an issue. Sometimes you just fall through them, which, I mean, falling off of a stage just respawns you. It's not a big deal. On the more interesting end, there's stair boosting. Walk up a staircase or slope, mash jump, and you go way up. This is blatantly unintentional, at least I'm pretty sure. There's no way that it's on purpose. But also, I really love its inclusion here. It's a fun movement option, letting you reach areas intended and unintended for new angles, to take photos from the sky, and when going for a time run so that you can get the extra upgrade, it lets you do some cheeky shortcuts to get around, which is very satisfying. That's all to say that the movement isn't really an issue. Even when it breaks, it's not a big deal, and when it breaks in your favor, it's just another way to take cool pictures. It's a wonderfully crafted little sandbox which draws you into its world and lets you paint all over it. I've spoken a ton about taking pictures in this game, but part of the reason taking pictures is so satisfying is because everything else is so damn good. Well, not exactly the PlayStation style, it doesn't have the texture warping. It has a low poly style and a definite 90s vibe, kinda grungy and grimy with a lot of banger music. The world is beautifully well realized. Umurangi's 8 maps, 6 if you don't count the tweaked and reused ones, although they are pretty different, are all vastly different in scope, idea, and story, with a loose but present progression in time as the maps go on, starting with chill days on the roof of a high-rise, enjoying the pool with your friends, and with only a hint at something odd. An occasional jellyfish here and there, which appear to be bluebottles, a type of jellyfish with a nasty sting frequently seen on Australian beaches, which are recontextualized into an invading alien force. By the final level, a return to the rooftop, the UN, which has seized Australia, emphasis on the fiction and science fiction on this one, is using Gundams to fight off the bluebottle kaiju that is destroying the world, instead of writing a mildly worded edict about it. The UN presence in the world isn't exactly welcome, but isn't exactly an issue day-to-day for most people either. The second stage is a UN encampment, and while a few people seem busy, the soldiers are kinda just shooting the shit, smoking. Whatever's going on isn't that big a deal yet. By the time you return to this base, a mostly unseen mass is climbing the mountain to its side, seemingly overrunning the UN forces. The stage is covered in insta-death goo, soldiers are crippled, it's dark, everyone is shooting at the mass in the distance. Most levels aren't as intense as these two. A lot of it is just exploring the world. The wall city is a bit of an urban slum, a neon-clad church looms over the city, a tree serves as a memorial for a group that no longer exists, bikers smoke in the alleys. It has a sort of dim beauty to it. It's depressing and downtrodden, but people are still just doing their thing, and there's lots of nice things to look at. The Strand is an upbeat downtown covered in neon lights and gaudy shops, and a ton of really cool graffiti. There's this effect in the basement area where the graffiti is like semi-3D. It looks really... I don't really know how to describe it, but you can see it here. Although there's also a crashed alien thing just off the side that reminds you that all of this is just a form of escapism. It's my favorite area by far. The train is a claustrophobic ride across whatever's left of the world. It's crammed with tiny perspective puzzles where the tight space limits your ability to get clean shots, and beyond the red sky metaphor, a sort of end-of-the-world scenario the next generation has to face down, presumably largely inspired by COVID, given the year. It also feels like one of the game's many inspirations. It certainly bears a lot of resemblance to End of Evangelion. The alien monster doesn't look too dissimilar from an angel, and there's of course giant mechas, and one of your best friends is a penguin. I mean, it's not subtle, but it sure is a cool looking thing to draw inspiration from. I really like the ending. It's quiet. There's an imposing and looming threat to what's left of humanity as the ancestors look on, perhaps in shame or just in worry. It's fairly obvious, yet poignant as a symbol of decline, perhaps almost nature taking itself back in some odd way. Anyway, yeah, the game looks good, but have you heard the music? It's been playing. I'm not quite sure what to say about it. It's a diegetic collection of lo-fi, PlayStation 1, Ridge Racer, Gran Turismo-ass type beats by YouTuber Thor High Heels, which is very in line with the games that tend to be covered on that channel and the games that are enjoyed by Thor, and the videos that they make. Every Thor High Heels video is scored by original music, so if you're a fan of that channel, you should probably already know what to expect, but it's really just fantastic stuff all around. This album is kind of just crazy. The whole thing is diegetic in universe, and it's just a nice collection of lo-fi beats to take pictures of the end of the world to. I'll get back to the diegetic thing in a minute, don't worry about it. Umurangi Generation I've kind of said it all already. It's a beautiful little game that lets you take cool pictures. The music is bumping, the maps are detailed and beautiful, and the iSpy structure dragging you around to see every little thing it has to offer is brilliant. The amount of sliders, lenses, and upgrades give you so much ability to make this little world your own, make your own cool pictures and memories. There's a bit of an interesting story creeping along in the background, reflecting on growing up and observing the way the world changes and degrades. It's not a complicated game, but it's fulfilling to explore and make art within it. About a half year after the game's initial release, Umurangi Generation got its macro DLC. It's 4 more levels, more music, and was very inspired by the current events of late 2020. I read an interview about macro, which is a interesting read. The next game by Origame certainly sounds like it will be a game of some kind, but also Gamer's Palace, the first level, is apparently some commentary about how fascism is alive in the gaming industry because the gaming club has a VIP area where businessmen do drugs with bunny girls. Maybe it's all just too deep for me, I don't know. The levels in macro are good. They seem a bit more hyper-focused on different aspects of the game. Gamer's Palace is a location that you can see from the outside in the level The Strand. It's got this kind of synthwave vibe, Blade Runner anime, hologram girls, and we finally get to meet Thor High Heels Fursona, Tariq, the drunk dolphin DJ who's writing the game's music on the fly and telepathically beaming it to the world. I love him so much. You can even clip in there and hang out with him. Oh yeah, clipping. There's new upgrades in macro. One is the roller skates, which let you go so comically fast that you can and probably will accidentally clip out of bounds. It's really fun to use and lets you take a lot of pictures that you were probably never supposed to take. It also is really janky when you accidentally get stuck in a place that you can't clip back out of. I like it. I think it really adds to the already janky movement. Like, we already had the ability to stair boost and go to heaven, so now being able to just run so fast that you can fly through walls, it's great. There's also a few other upgrades, like an ISO mod, which changes how much light the camera takes in, as well as an aperture mod that allows you to tweak motion blur. You can go prone to get some low angles that you couldn't before. It's just a collection of additional little tools to let you take even cooler pictures. The hangars where the Gundams are being built, it's so damn cool to see them up close and climb on them, and to see people just living their lives, eating lunch on the robots and working and hanging out in the bunks. This map feels huge but cramped. You're not going to struggle to find the things you need to find too much, but the scale's impressive. And there's a neat little secret area that shows one of the robots getting infected. The music goes quiet when you see it, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be the monster from the final level before it's finally taken over. It's a really cool little area. The depths is a sewer filled with neon green sludge. This is the final boss of the iSpy gameplay. The sewers are winding and dense, and what you need to find is usually small and pretty well hidden. It took me a long time to do this level. There's some interesting stuff down here too, what appears to be a drug farm in the radioactive sludge. There's a bar, weapons dealers. It's a really fun place to explore, but probably the level that's the hardest to actually complete just for how dense it is. The underground city is, it's a Black Lives Matter protest. It acts as a bit of a victory lap, which sounds kind of bad to say in that context, but the level's very easy and small. Your friends follow you around protesting, and you get dinged for photographing them in attendance. Anti-cop graffiti is everywhere, tear gas and rubber bullets on the ground. It's all very on the nose for 2020 in a way that even the main game wasn't. The most interesting stuff is the ending. The underground city actually exists in a virtually projected skyline that breaks down after completing the level, as a UN Gundam is used to break up the protests and the police are mobilized. You know, on the nose quite a bit, which this is definitely a prequel, but I have to imagine it takes place after like the first level or maybe the first 2 of the base game. I'm not sure. The metaphor for what's going on here is not in any way subtle, and I do not believe it was meant to be. You know, make of that what you will. There's a lot of interesting visual stuff going on. The way the Gundam looms over you, the non-traditional ending to the level, the darkness of the last minute. It's a very interesting finale in a very different way from the original ending. It's much less somber and thoughtful. More levels, more opportunities to take cool pictures and tools to do it with, plus plenty of new music, interesting visuals, and a challenge level to work through. Macro's cheap, but it's also about a 50% extension to the length of the game, with some new places that have very good opportunities to take cool pictures, and the levels are all interesting, if a bit on the nose. It's a well worthwhile upgrade to the base game. I mean, you get to meet Tariq, how could it not be? As a complete package, Umurangi Generations and Macro are absolutely fantastic.